question box to enter their name so we know who all is joining us today. We'd greatly appreciate that. So Andy Watt has already let us know that Mrs. Welsh is with him today, and Sam Morocco has said that Lisa Hughes, their math coach, is with them, and they're listening in as well. So thank you all for doing that. Again, if you have someone else with you that's not listed in our attendee list, please write that into the question box. If you're joining us by phone or by a microphone on your computer, either one is fine. Again, we'll show you what the controls in the control screen on the right-hand side. You probably know how those work, probably without much problem. But if you can, when we open your microphones up, and we do encourage you to talk using your microphone, I'll unmute your microphone, and we ask that you turn down your volume on your computer if you can. Sometimes we get a little feedback noise, and sometimes we get the bell ringing in the background, which is certainly fine. Let me just show you real quick the screen on your right-hand side. You can see what looks like there. You know that that little orange button will condense it off to the right-hand side. If you want to see the whole thing, you click it again, and it will expand the little orange button and the little control box as well. That will open and close what they call the control panel. If you're joining us either by phone or by a mic, either way is fine. If you do the microphone, you can test it by just clicking on the audio setup. We're going to go through the mics here in just a moment so you can find out if it works or not. If you want to use the telephone, that's fine. When you click on the telephone button, it'll give you a phone number, and you'll have to use both this access code that's right below the phone number and also that audio pin number. This example shows it as audio pin 72. I actually had audio problems with my mic earlier today with cosmetology teachers, so I had to call in, and hopefully you can hear my audio fine this afternoon. Then, of course, if you have questions, you can enter them at any time, and we encourage you to enter them any time, even if someone's speaking. We won't interrupt them with a question, but we'll get to the question. And if it's an audio problem, or if it's just a question for presenter or comment, the way is fine. And then there's the raise your hand icon there. Also, encourage you to raise your hand. That will allow me to unmute your microphone so that we can hear you. Thanks, Kathy. Kathy says your microphone is much better than this morning. I agree. Just a real quick reminder that if you want Act 48 credits for participating, there are some specific requirements. You have to attend at least a minimum of 3 webinars from your PLC group, and then you have to submit a response form within 5 school days of the webinar. So you have to do that before Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. And I'll show you that form in just a moment. You can read the rest of the information on this screen, but that just gives you a little bit more information. We'll keep track of different those who are participating, but if you want to get credit for it, you need to turn those in within 5 days. Here's what the response form looks like, just briefly. Again, you just are asked to fill in a little bit of information about yourself at the top. 3 questions. We ask that you don't just submit a one-line answer, just as you would request your students to do. Probably you want a little bit more detail, so if you'll write a short paragraph in each one of those questions, that would be great. And then you can complete and email the form there at the email address that's listed there on the left-hand side. PAPLC, pretty easy to remember, and then meterconsulting.com. PAPLC@meterconsulting.com. If you don't get that, we'll get back to it again at the very end in case you have some questions. You can just use your question box at any time if you do have questions about it, and we'll help you out. I'm still learning the technology today, so bear with me as I go through. But again, we really want you to be the ones who talk today and who give us your feedback. What we've done with the model curriculum or model lessons PLCs is the first one that we did earlier in the fall. We talked about what you're teaching, a little bit about standards, a little bit about content. We showed some lesson plans of some auto tech teachers, really just covering the basics. And we're open to discussing any curriculum questions you have again this afternoon. But today specifically what we'd like to focus on is how your students are learning and how you know they're learning or not learning. So whatever method you use for assessing progress, we want to know how you determine if students are learning. Do you use any quizzes or interim assessments or but sometimes they're called formative assessments to tell if they're on track or not on track. And then how do you readjust instruction if they're not learning? And how do you help students who are struggling? Think about some of your ideas on that, because we'd really like to hear from all of you about how you do that. It's not for my benefit, but it's for the benefit of everybody involved. So that's the purpose today. That's the whole basic in the beginning. We'll open up microphones here in just a moment. I'm going to list your name one at a time. And if you have a microphone or if you're on the phone with us, please tell us your name, where you're from, what school, and what your favorite lesson or skill to teach is in your class. You know, a favorite lesson you have, or maybe you're really good with transmissions or you really like some other aspect. Tell us what that is. And in no particular order, I'm going to unmute the line for Albert. Lindsay, Albert, are you there today?
Good.
Hello, yeah, I'm here. Albert's here.
Great. Great. We can hear you well. Where do you teach, Albert?
Fayette County CTI, auto mechanics program.
All right. Do you have a favorite lesson?
I didn't hear you.
Do you have a favorite part of your course that you like to teach?
Favorite, you say?
Do you have a favorite lesson?
Really no favorites.
No favorites. They're all the same. Okay. Who else is with you?
Joe Kapolsko.
In
Okay.
Wade Grove.
Wade Grove, math teacher. Mr. Kapolsko teaches diesel.
All right.
Mr. Grove here teaches math.
Fantastic. Sounds like a crowd. Sounds like a party. Good. Well, we may be asking some questions. We'd love to hear your feedback from anybody there as we go along today. Let me see if Alan, I don't know if you can, you have a microphone that you can join us, Alan Fry? Alan, can you say hello? Okay, I'm not sure if the microphone is working for Alan. How about Andy? What? Andy, are you there? I know the microphone doesn't work for everyone. Andy, just another chance. Andy, are you there?
Is the microphone on now?
It is.
All right, it wasn't apparently. Andy Watt from Jeff Tech. I think my favorite subjects to teach are hydraulics and fuel injection.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you very much. How about Ben Wenzel? Ben, are you there? Are you joining us by phone?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, you can. Very good. I would have to say engine performance really gets my blood pumping a little bit there.
Great. Good. And where do you teach, Ben?
I'm in Monroe Career and Technical Institute in Monroe County, Pennsylvania.
Fantastic. Great. I'm going to mute your microphone now, but anytime you guys want to speak and add a comment or have a question, just raise your little hand there. Your little hand. I don't know what else you call it. Little hand button. And we'll unmute your microphone so you can join us. Bobby Baird, do you have a microphone you can say hello?
Yeah, I do.
Hello.
Yep.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Yeah, Bobby Bard, Franklin County Career and Tech in Chambersburg, PA. Probably my favorite also is engine performance.
Hey, Bobby, you were cutting out just a little bit. You may have to say the last part again.
I was going to say my favorite also to teach is engine performance.
Okay. Engine performance as well. All right. Great. Thanks for joining us, Bobby. Dan Schumann, are you with us on the phone?
Yep. Yep. We're here at Northumberland County Career and Technology Center. And probably the most fun, or at least this time of year coming up, we're going to be talking about how fast is 200 miles an hour. I'll have the kids convert it to feet per second. It's kind of a neat exercise. Kids see how fast 200 mile an hour is. Because Daytona's coming, and that's kind of neat.
Oh, there it is. How many is it?
That's a full field a second.
Okay. Wow. That's great. That puts it in perspective. Thanks, Dan. Is someone else there with you?
Oh, just me.
Okay. Good deal. Dave Thistlewaite. Dave, can you join us by phone?
Yes, I can.
Great. Introduce yourself, if you would.
I'm Dave Thistlewaite, Auto Technology at Greene County CTC, And probably just one of my favorite lessons would be air conditioning.
Great. Maybe not needed right now, but certainly important.
No, we don't.
Pretty soon, though. I'm calling from Indiana, so I imagine you're all getting some of the same temperatures we are.
Oh, yeah.
Cold. Yeah, great. Hey, thanks, Dave. Dave Menges? I'm sorry, Merges? Is it Merges, Dave?
Yes, it's Dave Merges, York County School of Technology. I stroll up and down the curriculum and all the different 1 through 8 categories and try to pick one out. I'll just say for today the chassis.
Okay. Enjoy teaching about chassis, but it sounds like you enjoy a lot of different aspects. Great. And did you have someone else with you there, Dave?
No, I'm here solo flighting today. Now, the last webinar, Todd Kessler was here. There's 2 of us to teach auto shop, and they were the last one coming at a time.
Okay. Great. I'm glad you could join us, Dave. How about Jeff Schmel? Yeah?
Yes, Jeff Schmel from the Berks Career and Technology Center West Campus, and probably the couple of the most interesting programs that I enjoy would be the safety inspection as well as the emission inspection.
Huh. Very good. I like that. Okay, thanks, Jeff. How about Jim? Jim, can you pronounce your last name from Jim? There's several Jims, I'm sorry. Jim Kriminov, is that correct? Jim has a microphone. Okay, we'll get back to Jim if we can. How about Jim Gregory? Jim Gregory, do you have a mic you can say hello? All right, we'll go down the line. How about Jim Schumann?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Ah, great. Where you at, Jim?
Indiana County Technology Center.
Fantastic. You have a favorite area you'd like to teach in your classes?
No, I like them all. I just love automotive in general, but high performance is my favorite. If I stick with the curriculum, engine performance.
Great. That's wonderful. All right. Thanks, Jim. Kathy Houghton is with us again. Kathy, I don't know if you have a favorite area in math. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. This is Kathy Houghton from Technical College High School, Penn Oxbridge campus. I'm a math coach, and I guess my favorite area, which would not apply to anything with automotive, would be probably factoring polynomials.
Say that part again?
Factoring polynomials. But that's all right. You don't have to discuss it.
Okay. Well, great. Thanks, Kathy, for joining us. We appreciate that. Mike Castelli, can you hear us by phone? Can you say hello?
I am here by phone. Like you said, Mike Castelli, Central Westmoreland Votech. Probably one of my favorite lessons to get into is new technology, something that's not really embraced by the younger group, which you would think would be the opposite, but it's nice to see how quick you can persuade some of these guys to appreciate the new upcoming stuff.
Huh. How do you do it? Just by introducing them to it?
We introduce it first, but we start with the creature stuff, obviously the iPod integration and the hands-free stuff, and then slowly we roll into the hybrid stuff that, no 17-year-old wants to talk about hybrid performance, but slowly but surely you can at least get them to understand it, if not appreciate it.
Fantastic. That's great. Well, we may want to hear more about that today. Thanks, Mike. How about Mike Bernardin? Are you with us, Mike?
Yes, I am. Mike Bernardine, Lehigh Career and Technical Institute. Probably the favorite, or I get amped up about, is probably anything dealing with suspension, chassis, and engine building. So.
Fantastic. That's great. I'm glad you could join us. You guys do better than anybody else with getting them on the microphone, so I appreciate that. Thanks, Mike. Paul, you want to say hello if your microphone works?
Hi, my name is Paul Charlone. I work at the Middlebucks Institute of Technology. My favorite subject is electrical. I really get amped up and no pun intended, about teaching electricity, because there's nothing on a car that doesn't have something that works with the electrical system and circuitry.
Yeah. Fantastic. That's good. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, it all kind of connects back to that. Great. Thanks, Paul. Pete Holland doesn't have a mic, I don't think, that is working. So Pete said his favorite lessons are the ones that students get fired up about. Pete Holland. So thanks, Pete. I agree with that. Sounds like I can actually hear something, Pete. You might try saying hello. No? Okay, maybe that's other audio there. Pete, thanks for joining us. He's putting questions in the question box. Rich Ross, are you there? Richard Ross? Okay, maybe joining us, but the microphone may not be working. How about Bob Porter?
Yeah, I'm here. You hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rob Porter from the Central Montgomery County Vocational School, and my two favorite areas are suspension, steering, and electrical.
Great. Fantastic. Some similarities with others of the group. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that.
You bet.
Sam Morocco is going to be one of our speakers today. Sam, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Sam Morocco, Reading Muhlenberg Career and Technology Center. I don't know if I have a favorite, but you know, I think I get more excited when I know that I got something across that I hadn't done before. This is my 8th year. I'm not, I guess, a rookie, but there's still a lot to get done as far as me being a great teacher. So I still do things one year and it didn't go so well, but when I do it the next year, and they learned and I can tell, then I get revved up on that.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever have a situation where you teach it to one group and they're all excited, and the next year or the next group they're not quite as excited. Never figure that out. I mean, Sam, who else is with you?
Hi, I'm Lisa Hughes. I'm the math coach here at Reading Muhlenberg.
Hey, hi, Lisa.
Hi. And yeah, I like factoring polynomials too, if it was a math concept. But I think one of my favorites here at the Tech is probably the business math end of it, because I feel that all these students in any program area can benefit by learning all the payrolls and the costing of jobs and things like that. So I think that's just beneficial.
Exactly. Very good. Yeah, because you want to teach them not only the skills in auto technology, but also the business skills that may allow them to open their own place or move up the line in some respect. Great. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Sam. We'll come back to you in just a little bit. Sharon, I think, is with us. Sharon, can you say hello?
Hi, I'm Sharon Dialing from Dauphin County Technical School, and I have Barry Kircher here. He's our auto tech teacher, and I'm our math coach.
Great. So Sharon, Barry, do you have a favorite area you like to teach?
Favorite areas of electrical electronics. That's where all the bells and whistles are.
Yeah.
What technology.
Literally where the bells and whistles are. Great. All right. Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Barry. I think we just have one more to introduce. Tom Buck. Tom, thanks for joining us.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Tom Buff, and I teach at the Schuylkill Technology Center here in Frackville, Pennsylvania. I think my most challenging is suspension and steering and electrical, and I'm also pretty much into using math and integrating math into our curriculum, and I like to factor polynomials.
Well, that's good. A great combination. I wonder if any of your students find that that's one of their favorites, or is that pretty rare?
That's pretty rare. Pretty rare.
I imagine so. Well, thank you all for joining us. Tom, I'm going to keep your microphone on because I think I've got your document up on the screen for everyone to see. And again, what we're talking about today is how you help students not only learn, but how you know if they're learning or if they're not learning, and sort of what you do about that. So, Tom, I don't know if you can see the screen, but could you talk us through this document you have here?
All right, I could show you a lot of things about this. This module here I made is a work in progress, and it's definitely integrating math into our modules. It's pretty simple, and if you first look at it, you'll think maybe it's not really a formative assessment, but it really is, because I do use a lot of observations, questioning, discussion, graphic organizers. We use some quizzes. I use this as a group project, and it does take us a few days to do. And I sort of get the kids a little excited about it because you can see there is math in it, but there's also how to use the micrometer. I'll sit them down. I'll have them start on the module. I'll have them do some reading, and then we'll get together and we'll learn in groups, and we'll learn how to read the micrometer, and then how to use it, how to read it properly by using the decimal system, and converting it. We sit down and we'll go over some vocabulary questions, but it's not a sit down and do it yourself. We do them together. Okay. Then I'll use YouTube, and I'll go onto YouTube and show them a couple of examples of people using micrometers and how they use them, and we'll do some practice with the decimal system. And it's a real good way to find out if they're good at it, and if they really do learn how to use it the proper way. But like you remember, if you look through this thing, there's a couple of things in here that I actually shouldn't have in here that I made a mistake, because this is a work in progress, and I just wanted to throw it out there and show it to you. So I'd rather maybe you guys throw some questions at me instead of me explaining the whole thing to you. But like I said, as you can see, there's a lot of different types of formative assessment in this learning module.
So tell us, again, just a reminder to everybody that there's a little hand symbol on the right-hand side. Just raise your hand and I'll unmute your microphone, and you can ask your question or make a comment directly to Tom, or use the question box there on the right if you'd rather type it in, and I'll read it in and ask Tom a specific question. Tom, it looks, so you have the objectives here, and you have a lot of information about how it correlates to standards and to the assessment anchors. How do you actually do the assessment? Is it paper pencil? Is it observation? What do you do?
Basically, I do use observations naturally, because I will give them a little while that they will sit down in groups and do some of the module. We'll do it in little parts. We'll chunk it up, and naturally I watch how they're progressing through it. And as they go through, I'll stop, and we'll completely stop doing the module, and I'll put a couple examples up on the board, and they will have to do them. They will have to do a couple of them, so I can give them some practice and see if they're learning how to, first of all, do the decimals, and then second of all, read the micrometer. And I think by putting it together like that, they really don't think they're doing math. They just think they're using a micrometer.
Let me put the question out to other teachers that are on the webinar with us. Anybody else teach webinar or teach micrometers in a similar method, or use some other technique that is effective? And we've got a couple of people answering. First, I'm going to go to Dan Schumann. Dan, you want to make a comment about that?
Yeah, I do something real similar, except that I have an overhead projector with the slides of all the different parts of the mic, and we'll piece up at a time, discuss how it's build right on the board.
Okay. Dan, are you cutting out a little bit, but I think we got the majority of that. Did you want to add anything more to that?
Yeah, we have a couple tricks in the kids, measure a crank or a shaft. Also, we'll have a written test where they have samples on the thing. They have to read them and write.
Dan, we're getting a little bit of other conversation in the background, so I'm going to mute you for now. We can come back to you a little bit. Dave Emerges, do you want to make a comment about this?
Yeah, I think it's challenging pretty much for everybody, just getting the math concepts down to read a micrometer. And one thing I've learned to do, shown to me by someone somewhere along the way, is I use the monetary system as a reference. Because I start out by saying, how many of you can make change for $1? And the ones, basically the whole class will raise their hand. And I said, well, if you can make change for $1, you can read a micrometer. And then I go on to explain that each number on the sleeve represents $1, and that each increment between the numbers on the sleeve represents 25 cents, and that each number on the thimble would represent a penny. So I get them to see it in that regard, and then it's just a matter of getting them to understand that the thousands always need 3 numbers to the right of the decimal. So if you're on a 0 to 1 micrometer, just move the decimal. Take your money, add it up, move your decimal all the way to the left, and you got it. And then, of course,
hey, Dave.
1 to 2 inch micrometer.
Dave, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're having trouble hearing you. I don't know if you can get closer to your microphone, or just having a little trouble.
Yeah, is this any better?
Yeah, it's a little better.
Any better?
Yeah.
Okay, just positioning this thing. I've got a lot of feedback, so I'm not sure what you're hearing on the other end. I can repeat if you'd like me. I don't know.
Yeah, if you could briefly summarize what you said, that'd be great.
Like I say, I used a monetary system, equating each number on the sleeve to $1 and each increment in between the numbers of the sleeve to 25 cents. And then each number or each hash mark on the thimble would represent a penny. And they build their answer that way, just adding the money together, slide the decimal point all the way to the left, and you have your thousandths of an inch. And works well for me.
Great, great. Thanks for that, Dave. Let me unmute the mic for Jim Crimino. Jim, do you want to make a comment on that, how you do it?
Well, I usually use an interactive PowerPoint with an interactive response system for micrometers.
How do you do an interactive response system?
Well, we have the actual interactive response systems hooked up to the smart boards.
Okay.
And we use, I prepared a PowerPoint which also interacts with that. So we go through the basics of how to use it, how to read it, and of course all the parts of it and so forth. And then we get into some actual hands-on where there's actually pictures of it up there, and then they have to put in what they think it is. And then we pull through and we see if they come up with the right answers. And there's 25 or 30 examples on there as we go through. And because it's interactive, and they seem to enjoy that quite a bit.
Great. So they have little devices that they can use to interact with the PowerPoint, with the smartboard?
Right. They can all put in their own answers. Mm-hmm.
Good. Does anyone else use smartboard or other technology with this? Jim, thanks for that answer. I'm going to go to Kathy real quick. I didn't mean to ignore you, Kathy, but did you want to make a comment about this?
Yeah, we did a presentation using something called an Elmo, which is similar to an overhead projector, except that it actually projects the image up on the smartboard, and you can zoom in. So as you're looking at the micrometer, you're actually seeing it enlarged, so the students can see each increment that the instructor is talking about.
Huh. Great. And it seems to be effective then.
Yes, it's wonderful because it's crystal clear and it's enlarged so that everyone in the classroom, no matter where they're sitting in the room, can see exactly the measurement he's talking about.
Huh. Wonderful. Thank you. Mike Castelli, you want to make a comment on this?
Well, she kind of summed up some of the stuff that I was going to get into, but we have, we're fortunate enough to have all of that software and hardware, I guess, installed collectively. We have the Elmo. We have the smartboard. We have the Wisdom system. I have found out that if you have the smartboard and you're not part of the Smart Share system yet, you may want to spend the time. It's kind of a pain to set up, but it's worth every second. And they actually have three-dimensional micrometers available. I've downloaded one. I've shared that information. And using the smartboard and the Elmo, you really only have to show that one time, and if you record it correctly, you'll always have that with you. And it's, the first thing I did when I took this job was get rid of the green chalkboard that was on the front. That was the very first thing I asked for, and there's no way of going back. The smart boards are, as far as retention, they're unbelievable. But
yeah. Do you feel the students connect better when you use it?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you feel the students connect better when you use the smart board?
It's almost instant. Even with the dry eraser board, the second you pick up a dry eraser pen, you can almost see, some of the just daydreaming start already. Chalkboards are even worse. With the smart boards, it's a different animal. It's technology. It's as close to a pad as you can get. They're so capable of doing so many things. You can definitely hold their attention way longer, and they seem to get it better than doing it. I've used the monetary system. It works well, but when you put all that together with the smartboard, it really is unbelievable.
Oh, amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Mike. And Tom, we're going to get back to you. I want to take another comment from Jim Schumann. Jim, did you want to make a comment about that?
Sure. Unfortunately, I had a smart board and it quit working, so now it's just a whiteboard. But I have about 100 high-quality digital photos of micrometers, and what we do is just use a dry erase marker. We put it up there for the entire class to see, and then we go up and we show our math. That's the main thing, is each student takes a turn. Of course, I have to model it, and then we all work together, and before you know it, there isn't a single student that isn't able to read a micrometer correct every single time.
Huh. That's a good way to assess learning. You just make sure everybody gets it until you just go through one by one, huh?
Exactly. And they all help each other.
Great. Well, I've seen a lot of smart boards used as whiteboards, really high-priced whiteboards, but hopefully they'll get those fixed for you.
Hopefully. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. Ben Wenzel, did you want to share a comment about that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of good information that's out there. You know, we're basically using a smart board also, overhead projector, going over the parts of a micrometer so that they can label and piece the numbers together for each component. Using examples, let them see how we're getting through the different increments and how the graduation lines are lining up with the thimble and adding it up, you know, one piece at a time to get them familiar with that. And then we'll go back and have examples then where they're feeling comfortable now. They'll actually start plugging in some answers, and we'll have the students go around the class taking a chance to come up and try to plug those answers in. Once we get a good feel that pretty much everybody is on board reading it properly, we'll have some setups right in the classroom that they'll have to actually use different micrometers, under an inch, over an inch, moving the number to the left of the decimal or to the right. Once we get them feeling good about that and feeling comfortable, then we have workstations set up out in the lab area. Each workbench would have different types of components. It could be under an inch or over an inch, and they have a worksheet that they're going out there and they're doing these measurements, and it gives me good feedback because I already know what the measurements are in 3 different locations of each rotor, or if we're doing inside micrometer on a drum, and then we come back and analyze that information, and we can tell who's learning and who's falling behind, and then I can adjust accordingly, okay? Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it's all about finding out who's not learning and what you do for adjustments. We'll talk about what you do with those who especially struggle a little bit later on, but either Sam or maybe Lisa, you have a comment about learning to use the micrometer or fractions, et cetera?
Yeah, I was going to comment on the micrometer. I use a smart board too, and that's great. And I kind of follow what a bunch of the other instructors have mentioned. You start out with your worksheet and you kind of going over the parts, but I found a online moving micrometer. I have it in a Word document on my computer. I think it's Wisconsin University online, and it's a nice little tutorial. But then you get into practicing, and you can, as an instructor, I can just hit the button and you watch the micrometer spins and it stops, and then they have to use a keyboard. And I use a wireless keyboard, and I'll sit it on the student's desk, and they'll take turns playing a game with it, and just that kind of fun stuff really gets them into it. But then I ultimately, at some point at the end, have a workbench with different stuff they have to measure, and I'll use a paint stick, like the one gentleman was talking about measuring the brake rotor. I want you to measure A, B, C. I'll do a piston. I'll do that with first-year students, and I'll put things in their hand that they're going to use later on down the road, and things that I think are real. Like they'll have to measure a piston, top, middle, bottom. They'll have to measure a rotor. And so that's how I'm going to know if they're really getting it. And in reality, I'm building them for later, and they're actually getting to use it on something really real. So it starts out as something, in a theory room and kind of a little fun on the smart board, and then, at the workstations, it's real.
Yeah. Well, I think for a lot of students, the math comes alive when they're in your classes, and sometimes they make the most unusual connection that, hey, this stuff I'm learning in math class actually correlates to real life. So it's nice to see those connections. Thanks, Sam. We'll get back to you in just a little bit. Kathy Houghton mentioned, and I'll open your mic here real quick, Kathy, but I don't know if you've all seen this, but there's a Mom Talk Kettle YouTube video showing how they do math incorrectly. Pretty funny. She says it's also a good lesson to show the value of number placement when adding, and can apply to the number placement concept with decimal calculation. Kathy, it's pretty funny, isn't it?
It's a great video. The students, they can see where they're making the mistakes, and they like the humor in it. And it's an old video. There's also one, I think, Abbott and Costello kind of do the same type of thing. So there are different versions that people can use. And again, it's a simple concept, just showing them the value of making sure that they're aligning their numbers correctly so that they don't miscalculate.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for that addition. It's always good to have a little bit of a lesson, or especially something that's humorous. That's helpful. Tom, we kind of overtook your lesson here. Did you want to add anything else about this, or comment on any of those comments?
Yeah, the thing I wanted to add is when I do use this lesson module, I do have it up on the smart board, and we do things. We do it all together, most of it. And what I do is I use a similar situation is what I use the internet, where I'll give them a lot of practice questions while we're doing that. There's a lot of sites on the internet that have micrometers on there where you can just keep practicing the readings and keep practicing the readings. But a big thing that I do is I do use YouTube, where I'll find there's a lot of guys out there on YouTube, no matter it be micrometers or doing engines or brakes, or where they make a lot of mistakes. And I found one on the internet on YouTube where the guy is making a couple of mistakes reading a micrometer when he's doing a rotor measurement. So I'll put that up and have the kids watch it, and they have to tell me what kind of mistakes they see. So I think YouTube is a very useful tool to find out, so where kids can learn stuff, because I think they learn a lot from seeing somebody learn the wrong way or doing it the wrong way.
Yeah, there's lessons to be shown in doing it the wrong way and finding out where those errors are. Good point. Good point. Well, thanks, Tom. Mike Castelli wanted to know what that video was called, and I think the one that Kathy was referring to, it's just, if you Google Ma and Pa Kettle do math, you'll probably find it. It's just a clip from one of their movies, and they're adding, I think, several different numbers, and there's like 2 different ways that they show how to do it. Of course, their way is the wrong way, but it's kind of interesting to watch how they do it. Jim Schumann says that Kathy Jones, math teacher, has joined him. Jim, does your math teacher want to make any comment about that on reading micrometers or reading fractions?
You know what? I just sat down, so I'll hold whatever I'm going to say for a few minutes here.
Okay, it's kind of unfair to call on you right away, so you can settle in and listen.
That's okay.
Sam, you wanted to make a comment? Sam or Lisa?
Yeah, Sam. I was just laughing a little bit at the YouTube thing. We do some process writing, which is a literacy strategy where you might take some steps and write them down and list them in order. And YouTube's really can be real fun with that sometimes. We just did one the other day on a master cylinder. I had some good ones, like 1 or 2 good ones, but I had some really bad ones chosen first. And it was neat to hear the kids react. Oh, mister, he forgot to do that, or they forgot this. And before we even did the exercise, they already was formulating what should have been done and what shouldn't have been done, because we kind of went over it, but I wanted to then get an idea of who truly knew what was going on, so I left them alone a little bit when they did the process writing. So YouTube can be great for that. You can really poke fun at the bad ones.
Yeah. Great. You can use it as a competition, too. Show a video. Students in groups of 2 or 3 or 4 can determine what they saw that was wrong and then report back, and whoever gets the most errors, wins, or some method like that. This is great. I'm going to throw out a question, and you don't have to answer it right away, but you can put it in the question box. But what is your toughest lesson to get across to students? What's the 1 or 2 or 3 areas that students seem to have the most difficult in understanding in your classes? And we can throw that out. Maybe we have some that are with us today that have a really creative lesson or method that they deal with that. So you can either use the raise your hand, or you can use the question box. Just type in one of the tougher lessons that you have. And as you do that, I'm going to go back to Sam and and see if we can talk about some of the things that Sam wanted to talk about with us today. Sam, do I need to access the SAS portal in order to pull up some information for you?
Unfortunately, no, Matt. I got a little bit crazy. Like I mentioned to you yesterday, I had we just finished up our Skills USA competition. That kind of wore me out. I went home. And I passed out last night. I should have. I feel bad. I wasn't exactly sure the angle I would have taken on that if it was just to throw a test up on there. But I think I know what direction you might be going into now with how like there's so many ways to assess a student learning, and you can always have the formative ones, and they're important. And I've been taught, and I'm sure all the other instructors have been. You gotta know or get a feel where the class is, and assessment always gets you there. But I also think that it's so much assessment that occurs just on one-to-one stuff, little things. Sometimes you do like an exit pass when you just want to have right before the end of the day, you were trying to cover something during the day, and you want to know and ask yourself, did they get it so I can go somewhere else tomorrow with this? And you might just do something like I mentioned before as an exit pass. And you'll ask a question, you'll collect the little paper, maybe rip a piece of paper in half, and you look at their answers, and you're seeing if they got it right, which ones got it right, and I'd have to say I'm at a point. I've been using formative testing, but I'm getting into more now, trying to do more with the ones that don't get it. I think I have a way of getting to a lot of the kids, but I'm fighting with myself a little bit on how to get to the ones that don't get it. And I am fortunate I do have the support. I probably get more from daily exercises and daily writing assignments and daily practicing. I get more of an idea of which ones are getting it and which ones aren't, so I can use that to get them the help they need, or I need to change something that I'm doing. So by the time I give a formative assessment, they're more prepared for it. So I guess I could put formative assessments on the SAS portal, but I don't know if that's what I really wanted to do. Might almost be a better, like having a list of things you do to assess the students, like an exit pass. Like Lisa, unfortunately she had to take off, but she was showing something that she started just recently. She bought these these small baby whiteboards, and she's been doing some math stuff where she'll ask stuff and she has them write them down and holds it up so the teacher can see it before they actually go over it. So that she's not only getting a feel of how many are getting it, but which ones aren't, and she can target that audience differently too. So it's a lot. I think all the little strategies that us as instructors learn, even if they aren't formative, they are assessments. Even just a verbal, and when you're conversating with your class and you're trying to get feedback, that's kind of like an assessment too, especially when you're trying to critique your lesson plan or what you did that day, if it worked or not.
Certainly. Yeah, I think there's a misconception that a formative assessment is a piece of paper in a certain format, and there's all kinds of formative assessments. As I think maybe you said earlier, Sam, observation is probably the biggest one for all of you. I mean, if they aren't able to do something in your class, it's pretty evident that they don't know either how to do it. I don't think they don't want to do it correctly. They just don't do it. So you know pretty quickly who's not got the skills and who does.
If you're practicing a lot with your lessons, that does the most for me. Then when I know they're prepared for a formative assessment after that. So I guess I'm doing a lot of mini assessing along the way.
Yeah. So for those of you who are joining us and still with us, do you do pretty well on the end of year assessments on the NOCTI exams, or are you surprised sometimes when you get the results back and you thought students knew a skill or certain particular knowledge set, and you find out after the assessment that they either didn't know it or they answered the question incorrectly? How do you deal with that? Because if you are assessing and using formative assessments well, then you should know prior to the assessment who's got it and who doesn't. Sam, you want to talk on that? I'd love to hear from anybody else about if there's a discrepancy there.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, that's a whole other concept. And I was processing that yesterday a little bit too, especially yesterday. Yeah. Ultimately, there's a lot of the activities I do that I always pin on the kids. Like this is real world. And also, I do pin the NOCTI at them. I'll be like, look, you know, and it's for some of them, they need to hear that. Like, hey, this is something you're going to have to know how to do when you're a senior and it's on your NOCTI test. And, you know, for that one or two kids that it grabs, I'm okay with that. You know, I don't teach to the test. I really want them to walk out the door knowing what they're doing. But, you know, at the end of the day, and it's their senior year, I don't worry about how well they're going to do on the NOCTI because I know that they're good, that they're going to know it. And, you know, yesterday I had the Skills USA competition here. And I'll be honest with you, it was my first one I ever held. After it was all over, like I wasn't part of it. You know, my judges were doing everything. I just kind of peeked at some of the answer sheets, and I was really surprised at some of the performance that the students were unable to do. It kind of shocked me a little bit. And I know that there's a lot that can go into that. And I had a 10th grader in my competition, so that I understand. I found that out later today that the one was a 10th grader. But like I was thinking or asking myself, how did they miss that? If a senior's, I saw in the one judge comment that the student told the judge that his instructor never showed him how to use a dial indicator. I was a little surprised by that. I mean, I was thinking to myself, what happened there? Was it, you know, I'm sure there could be a lot that could go into it, but, you know, I target for that, too, along the way, that NOCTI. And eventually, if I do send a kid in a competition, I know that, hey, we've gone over that 40 times. You know, I know that student's comfortable with that.
Yep. I'm sure there's others that have that same experience. Bob Porter, I'm going to open up your mic. You say the NOCTI knowledge test score is usually lower than the tactile, that sometimes the students just don't read the questions or don't read them carefully. Has that been your experience? I'm not sure if I've got a... Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, actually, you know, what was the question again? When you that the written test is always lower than the hands-on?
Right, I believe that's right. And I thought Bob might have a microphone. I think he's not able to join us by audio, but he said that sometimes the knowledge test score is lower than the tactile, the hands-on portion. And sometimes it's just as simple as the students don't read the questions, right?
Sure. Now, our school, what we did was we broke it up. We broke the written test or the computer-based test now up in, they broke it up in 2 days so that the students, I guess, have a sharper mind, a little more well-rested, that they don't burn out. And I guess they're allowed to do that. So that, you know, and you know, they are lower. You know, I think the average, and there's that national cut score that they go by. You know, your written test scores are usually on average like 52 to 55, depending on the year, and the hands-on are 85, 87, something like that. Yeah. But you know, I also take them in that direction too. You know, to you know, you get a little feedback from the kids. You know what kind of questions they're asking. We don't get to see the test, but you try to find out a little bit here and there. And I do know that they have to. You have to. Some of your criteria that you teach has to go over some of that stuff too.
Yeah. Let me open up Mike Bernadine's mic. Mike, did you want to comment on that too?
Yeah, I think a lot of the problem is the student itself is the intensity level. Like you know, you're talking maybe 200 questions, and if they sit there and they do it one at one time, it's just they get bored. They did the hell with it, you know, and they just throw in the towel. I have entertained the thing about having it in 2 days, which I think is a great idea. But also, I found the students talking, the questions are sporadic, where our industry dictates if you go in for an ASE test, you take, you know, 25 questions on suspension, it's all 25 questions on suspension, where the NOCTI test, the kids are coming back and saying, you know, the one question's on suspension, the next one's on engines, the next one's on this. There's no real rhythm that they can get into or get their mindset set at. And I think a lot of that has affect the scores.
Yeah. I'm guessing they do that to randomize the questions. I may be wrong on that, but to sort of eliminate cheating, possibly. But you say that's problematic then for the students.
Yes.
How are your scores compared to your idea of how well they're doing compared to how they perform? Is it pretty similar, Mike?
Yeah, the hands-on performance test, you might get maybe 1 or 2 out of the 27 that might take it. Everybody's either getting competent or advanced, but the hands-on or the written part is where we're running into some trouble. And obviously, getting a lot of good ideas the last 2 years through the PLC, and one of them was separating it into 2 days. Not that it be so taxing on the student itself.
Thanks for those comments, Mike. Anybody else have other techniques you've used to help students either retain the knowledge or perform better on the NOCD, especially in the written portion, or overcome their either boredom or dissatisfaction with the length of the assessment? That's a persistent problem that happens not just in your content areas, but in a lot of other areas. I know Jim Crimino says that he's had great success on the NOCD. Jim, is there anything specific that you do to help your students perform well on NOCD?
Well, we spend an awful lot of time working with really getting the students in the habit of doing ASC-style questions. That's basically what we use as our center. I use an older program, it's called ATC Challenge. I've been using it for years, and we just keep going through it as we're going through the year. We'll pick up different sections, and it's a nice training program, and it's all basically ASC-style questions. It has explanations in it and stuff like that, and the kids seem to really helps them get ready for those types of exams.
So does it not only help them in the style of questions, but also kind of the mode of answering the question?
Yeah, it's also in the content, because it not only takes them through the questions, it explains to them why their answers are right or wrong. Yeah. So it helps them understand why they made a mistake. And as I said, we'll do, especially when we get closer, like now starting in the spring, we'll start doing a couple a day, or like 10 of them or 15 of them a day. We'll just start going through different areas that will be on the NOCD, and we just add them in and have them practice them, and it does seem to help.
Yeah, great comment, Jim. I'm going to go. Oh, sorry, Jim. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
We've had pretty good luck with even the written. Certainly not. I have to agree with everybody else. I'm sure everybody else has the same situation where they definitely do better on the hands-on, but I've been pretty happy with our results on the writtens also.
Great.
But we use that as our standard ASC-style questioning. And, kids hate it, and there's no doubt about it, and it's hard to keep kids on task for a long test like that.
Yeah. Sometimes there's not a way around that, is there?
No, it's not. And fortunately, most of my students, usually take it pretty seriously. I try to make it sound like it's serious. We put a lot of emphasis on it, so they feel it's important. So most of the time, if they've been in the program for 3 years, they have enough going on that they feel that, well, I've gone this far, I'd like to get that certificate,
Yeah, exactly. Let me open up Albert Lindsay. Albert, your microphone. Did you want to make a comment on this?
Yes, this is Joseph Kaposko speaking. I'm with Albert Lindsay here in Wade Grove. I'm a diesel mechanics instructor here at Fayette County CTI. And I'd like to mention one of the techniques I use to get my students more involved with the NOCD and with all my other lessons. And that is, walk up to a student that's having difficulty. Let's just say, example, how to check in-play on the camshaft. So students says, I forget how to do this. And I said, well, what tool do you need? And I said, well, I'm not sure. So I'll go to a student way across the room and I'll say, hey Rick, I says, what tool did they need to check at? What's that procedure again called? You check the in-play on a camshaft, or what tool do you use? Sometimes I'll go around to 4 or 5 students in a room and everybody starts going, well, what's he talking about, or what's he asking? And eventually I have the whole class almost involved with the procedure, or say you don't remember this, you need a dial indicator or a Feller's gauge or things like that. But it just seemed like they all get like, well, why is he asking so many questions all of a sudden? So, and it does really seem to raise their curiosity. And now instead of just kind of going to that small group, a lot of times you get everybody involved, and sometimes you can even review a previous lesson or partially introduce a little bit of a new one too. So that gets them going.
That's a great technique. Yeah, kind of cooperative learning or collaborative learning, perhaps.
Pretty well.
Yeah. I'm good. I'm glad you made that comment.
Okay.
Just real quick, Ben Wenzel said Nazi.org has a practice exam if you haven't been there before, and online training remediation for their tests. He says we used the 2-day written exam there. Pete Holland says he plays a game 2 to 3 weeks before the Nazi exams and fires questions at the students where they get extra points every correct answer that goes toward their quarter grade. And I don't know if Mike Bernadine or Mike Castelli. I think Mike Castelli. Did you want to make a comment on this as well?
I did. One of the things that we have the luxury of is having 3 automotive instructors here, and that's one of the things that we do right from the word go. In a 2-year course, you will have all 3 instructors in that 2-year program, or 3-year. You'll do pop on one of them or whatever the case may be, but we only have first-year students or second-year students or third-year students, and they know right from the word go, you're going to do electrical. And part of that is going to be on the Nazi, and when you rebuild an engine, it has to run, and that stuff's going to be on the Nazi, and we prepare them accordingly. That way it's not a surprise 2 weeks before or 3 weeks before or even half a year before. It's like, wait a minute, I got to do what? So we let them know right from the beginning the importance of it on a real level, and all 3 of us pretty much stick to the guns and focus on the stuff that matters and keep going with that. It's just an all year for 2 years, however long they're going to be with us. We focus on it. And I think that's one of the other things is having the ability to, I couldn't imagine having first, second, and third year students all in one class, or even first, second, and one class. We're able to split that up, and it really makes a difference, and the scores are showing for it. Our scores are written is obviously a little bit lower than the performance, but they're all great scores.
Yeah.
So I think
So
there's that consistency.
So by sort of making sure your classes are more monogamous, more the same, has helped out as well.
And it works. It works for us anyway, because there are no upperclassmen. Every single person in that class is a first-year student or a second-year student or a third-year student. Everybody is treated exactly the same. There is no, well, you already know how to use a mic, so go do this instead. Everybody stays exactly the same. Maybe somebody that's a little bit better with it will do harder measurements, or something a little bit more difficult, in the scheme of things, but everybody's on the same page. And I think, when you take a group of students for granted, whether they're upperclassmen or more knowledgeable students, that's what ends up happening. You just take advantage of it, and they end up getting lost in it. Then they take a program like Nazi and they go, oh, I don't remember this because, they didn't put that much emphasis on it.
Maybe that normalizes it a little bit. In other words, there's a little competition to be at the same level as everybody else in your class, because we're all started about the same level. And if I'm falling behind, I
think that's the biggest thing. Your students that are a little bit more shy, they're not looking at a kid that's been here 3 years going, oh, man, I don't even want to, whatever he said has to be right because he's been here 3 years. It brings people out of the shadows a little bit more, too. So, like I said, I know everybody doesn't have that luxury, but it seems to make a difference on the scores for what it's worth. So.
Good point. Good point. Thanks, Mike. Tom, Buff, did you want to make a comment on that?
Yeah, what I've done with my NOCTI to improve my NOCTI scores is I've started every day after lunch. Now remember, we're a 90-day cycle here, so we do NOCTIs twice a year. I had my students have 3 questions we put on the board every single day that they have to come up with. I pick a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3, and they'll put a question on the board. And when we come back from lunchtime, we sit down and we not only answer the question, but we go back again, we use YouTube and we use our smartboard, and we will listen to something from YouTube about that particular question or anything that it has to do with. And my scores I had 4 seniors this cycle, and their pre-tests were averaging in 39, 42 range, and I had all 4 seniors up in the 70s this last testing cycle a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it worked wonders in the performance part and the the written part by you doing do 3 questions every single day. Yeah. But there's one more thing that I did that I guess most teachers probably won't do is I gave them some incentive at the beginning of the cycle. I told them that if all 4 seniors got advanced in the NOCTI, I would cook them steaks on the grill. And 2 weeks ago, I was actually out in the grill cooking my students steaks.
Great.
So, worked out pretty good, and they were all happy and excited about it.
That's great. You have to up the ante a little bit next year.
That's right.
Thanks, Tom. Jim Schumann had to leave, but he said they pre-test their juniors and use that report on their pre-test to find specific weaknesses in students. And he says that's been very effective. They had a 100% pass rate, which is not abnormal for them. So they had to leave the session a little bit. I want to get back real quick to, we asked earlier the question, what lesson do you have a particular tough time in getting across to students? Jim Crimino mentioned basic electrical theory. I don't know if anyone else had any other lessons that they had difficulty with, or maybe they had some thoughts to help Jim with basic electrical theory, getting that across. Probably more difficult than just adding one comment in a webinar, but we just have a few minutes left, so I didn't know if anyone wanted to make a comment. If you struggle with basic electrical theory as well, or if you have some techniques for Jim, we'll entertain those as well. And while you're thinking of that, any comments on how you use other students to help your students learn? Anybody effectively use, I mean, I know you do them all the time where you pair a student with someone maybe who's a little bit more skilled in one component than another, but any other techniques that you use for helping students succeed by using other students in your classes? Put those 2 questions out. You can use the question box or use the hand raising. And I know Sam's back with us. Sam, did you want to make a comment on that?
Yeah. I found, and I do this because I have a smartboard too. Our school a couple months ago acquired what are called clickers, or they call them responders too. But they work with your smartboard company has their own, but there was another company that each student gets a handheld box, and they have an A, B, a C, and a D. And with the newer company we went with, it's real easy to just create multiple choice questions. And what I've done already once was I took some questions from the last couple of years of the NOCTI review booklets that you can get for the students, and put some sample questions on, got some on the internet, and and through some of the feedback with the students, created some what I thought were pretty close to what they needed to know for that NOCTI question. And I break the classroom up in the sides, and we keep score. But you can put a question up and have them hit a button what they think the answer is, and then it's kind of like I make it into a contest where so many % got it right, so many % got it wrong, and and I also, before I give out the answer, I'll ask them, why do you think this is? And I do put the juniors, well, I'll put my kids together. I'll put like a level 1, level 2, or level 1, level 3 together, depending on the session. And that seems to pull kids along too a little bit. And that's a neat piece of technology you can have. You have the smartboard. And you don't even need a smartboard for the clickers, because that's a USB device now. So that's kind of fun and interactive. And we also here do the pilot NOCTI. That does, for a teacher and my students, they come back now, they want to know too, hey, what did I get? And I have altered my instruction that because of I've seen the group itself did really poorly in this one category. I gotta do some different things, go back over some things. That pilot NOCTI does gauge what I'm doing though too in the classroom.
Fantastic. That makes a difference on knowing which ones, what lessons are working and which ones aren't, and which ones they're getting and which ones they aren't. Very good. That's great.
And individually, on a person-to-person level, which one you're seeing their individual score. So as a group and as an individual, where you need more work.
Yeah, great. Dan Schumann had a comment on this. Dan, you want to say something on this topic?
Yeah, you're talking about teaching electrical basics. It is difficult because the kids can't see it. They can't feel it, really. But if you can convert it to plumbing and water and make a water analogy to it, they have a much better time, it seems, understanding the flow of the electrons and stuff. And I've had some success doing it that way.
Very interesting concept. That's great. That's something they could visually see and think about and visualize.
Yeah, they understand the water, but they don't understand the electrons because they can't see it. When they grow up with water, they get wet.
Yeah.
Understand that.
Great. Thanks for that, Dan. I don't know if that's helpful to Jim, but we'll check back. Bob Porter, did you have or Rob, I'm sorry, did you have a comment about this topic?
Yeah, I really enjoy teaching the basic electrical. And can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello? Okay, yeah, I really enjoy teaching the basic electrical, and we use the smart board here, like it sounds like most people do. But I use a product from a company called ATEC, which they're actually trainer boards where the students can sit down at their desks and design a circuit and actually wire it. And I can pull it up on the whiteboard and actually, draw the circuit out for them and use different colors. And I always tell them you kind of want to think like an electron, and how would an electron work through this circuit. And the whiteboard's a big help because you can bring it up and everyone can watch it, and you get some good participation out of it. The ATEC stuff's a little pricey, but if you buy it a little bit over the years, it's a great asset to the program.
Yeah. Huh. And it's called ATEC?
ATEC, yes. They're out of Kentucky.
Okay. Sam says have them put a 9-volt battery on their tongue and see if they can feel the electricity. That might work. I don't know if those of you who use the smart boards, if you can plug, I imagine they're USB accessible. I don't know if you can plug one into a computer. We're going to be meeting again on this webinar in just only 2 weeks. So some of you, if you're interested, maybe we can find a way you can plug it in your computer. If you can plug it into your computer, I can show it on the screen. I'll just give you control. But for those who haven't used smart boards, or those who have and want some new lesson ideas, that might be a good thing to share. I want to mention Kathy Houghton also mentioned that their system is called Smart Response. That's their clicker system that they use. That's great. This has been I hope it's been a beneficial conversation for you. It's been really beneficial for me. We're coming close to our end here. We're going to try to end by about 2:45. But what I want you to do is if you have a chance to ask, or if you want to ask any other questions at this time, go ahead and put that in right now. And then I'm going to go just through a couple more slides to wrap things up before we conclude today. One of them is I'd love to hear your ideas on what would be more helpful to you in our last webinar just on model curriculum. There are more PLCs coming up, but in February we're going to be specifically focused one more time on model curriculum. So if there's something that you want to hear about or want to hear from your colleagues, that would be great to know about. Just let me finish up on next steps very quickly before we wrap up the webinar today. Just a couple of items. We're going to be meeting again as a group, the Automotive Technology Group, on February 5th. That'll be a morning session from 9:30 to 11. And again, we'd love to hear your ideas of what would be helpful to you. It doesn't matter what I think should be talked about. It's really going to be what you feel is going to be helpful and most beneficial to you. In preparation for the next webinar, if you haven't done already, if you could create an account on the Pennsylvania Department of Education website, the SAS website at pdesas.org. It's a little tough to find, but you can also find some model lessons there. There's a few that are on that website, and you're welcome to do that. And remember that you can complete and submit the webinar response form within 5 school days of the webinar. If you have questions on any of that, just email us at our email there at the bottom of the screen. You can see paplc@meterconsulting.com, or give us a ring at the phone number there at the bottom of the screen, 410-740-2006. Anybody need a hand raised for any final questions or comments about what we've talked about today? I I don't see any, but you're welcome to do that, or any other written comments. Bob Porter says, administration tells me I need to fill out forms at the closure of each webinar. Send an email, got no reply. So if you need some direct help, Bob or Rob, you can send me an email directly at it's called Fleck Education. That's my own web or email address, Fleck Education, F-L-E-C-K, and the word education at gmail.com, and we'll help you through that process. Thank you all for participating today. It's been very helpful to me. And again, give us some ideas of what would be helpful to you for the next time. And until that next time, thanks a lot. And thanks for joining us today. We'll wrap it up right now, and we'll see you again in about 2 weeks.